down a tree. I'm just sitting here, I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together, it's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes you need to go and take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. You and me were meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
Flag burning should not be protected by the First Amendment, and the Supreme Court, like always, turns their back on America. Let's get to it. Welcome in, everybody. It's a beautiful Monday morning, and we got a little bit to break down. I am going to miss a big topic on the day that we're going to hit tomorrow, as you all know about the Antifa attacks already. But I already prepped this show, and we're going to do this show. We'll do the Antifa attacks tomorrow. However, there's a few big things. Trump goes to North Korea, the first president ever, United States president, to go to North Korea and set foot in there. Yet the left still melts down over that. I don't understand why. They seem upset as if Trump sent billions of dollars of cash on pallets to the dictator. Oh wait, no, the left cheered when that happened. But they're upset when the guy goes over there to try to denuclearize North Korea and seems to be doing rather well with getting Kim Jong-un to at least discuss it as an option. It's insane. It's like the left can just never be pleased. They can never be pleased with what's been going on. If Trump has success, they won't let him have a win. It's the most pathetic thing I have ever seen in my life. Most pathetic thing I have ever seen. Now, I didn't cover the dim debates the second night because I didn't have an episode on the Friday. So let's go ahead and discuss a little bit on this dim debate, the Democrat debate of Friday with their A squad minus Elizabeth Warren, because let's be honest, they put Elizabeth Warren in the other one because they're trying to push Elizabeth Warren. But a few interesting things kind of transpired throughout the night two of this debate. Now, Joe Biden, he's done. The one thing the debate has pushed forward is we realize Joe Biden has zero chance at winning the nomination. There isn't any opportunity, any pathway now for Joe Biden to come back. He was annihilated throughout it. Joe Biden, this is why Joe Biden never won. He never does good. In his presidential campaigns, he has never been a good campaigner. Why? Because Joe Biden's kind of an idiot. Joe Biden, most of you don't know, he's pretty much been in Congress, I think, since he was 29, or senator since he was Congress at 29. And he graduated on the bottom of his class with a law degree from kind of a unknown school. He didn't even go to a good school. I don't have the school off the top of my head. Let's see if we can't look it up real quick. But Joe Biden, he did not do well, and you can see why he didn't do well. He went to University of Delaware, in which they're not really that good of a law school. And he also, well, actually, I don't even think that was his law school. He went to College Law of Syracuse, so he went to Syracuse after, and again, But he graduated bottom of his class, and he wasn't a very good law student. Joe Biden has always tanked whenever he campaigned. So in 1988, he was caught with plagiarism, which destroyed him, made him drop out early. 2008, when he ran against Obama and Hillary, he was gone quickly because, well, he's a gas machine, and we see it. So when he was on the stage, he just comes up with this big smile, and he just, with those fake dentures that have been bleached like crazy, Joe Biden really provided nothing. He was a gas machine up there, and he didn't know what to say when he was confronted by Kamala Harris or anyone else over his segregationist situation. The media turned on Joe Biden that night. The media has been pushing Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren for this night forward. I've been following a lot of the comments of people on the left on the CNN MSNBC crowd, I've been following it whenever they discussed that debate. And all of them are saying Joe Biden's old, he's done, they don't want anything to do with him, they're not voting for him. Joe Biden's, he isn't even going to make probably 6 more months. The person they thought was going to get in there is done. He's done. They're going to have to push hard on Elizabeth Warren, it looks like, but I don't see any pathway, because if Elizabeth Warren, if she was the one to make it and win the nomination, you have to realize she is going to have to deal with this fake Indian situation she has created. It's not going to play well. Kamala Harris is a more unlikable Hillary Clinton. I don't see a pathway to victory for the Democrats in any kind of way. Now, bear with me. I'm about to switch to show you some clips, and a bunch of them are about to pop up. I'm going to close them down real quick. I forgot to close them down before I started the show.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10.
All right. So, during the debate, Bernie Sanders was actually pressed. So Bernie Sanders, he's one of these. I still think Bernie Sanders is going to win the nomination. I just don't see people really getting behind Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. I think Bernie Sanders still has his radical base. Now, he was asked, with his health care for all, will it raise taxes on the middle class? Bernie Sanders actually admits it's going to raise taxes on everyone, which is obvious, as we've been going over, and we'll go over here again, because I don't know how many times they have to hit home the numbers to this, which seems like math just the left doesn't care about. But here's Bernie Sanders getting pressed on that question.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10 seconds just to answer the very direct question. Will you raise taxes for the middle class in the Sanders administration?
People who have health care under Medicare for All will have no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, no out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, they will pay more in taxes, but less in health care for what they get. Yes, they will pay more in taxes. Yes, they will pay more in taxes. Yes, they will pay more in taxes.
Bernie Sanders admits he's going to raise taxes. He then tries to say, well, but you're going to get all this stuff. You're going to get covered with free health care. The health care is not good, first of all. Everywhere around the world where they give this free health care, it tanks, and it tanks miserably. It's not a good health care. It costs, on a conservative projection, and I'm not meaning politically conservative, I'm meaning at a low-end projection of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All, it's projected to cost $3.2 trillion a year. $3.2 trillion a year for Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All. For only Americans, for just the citizens. $3.2 trillion. Keep in mind, our current federal budget for 2018, which was, 2019, is projected to be at $4.4 trillion. $4.4 trillion. The total revenue projected to come in for 2019 is $3.4 trillion. So first of all, we're already $1 trillion in debt. Now, obviously, this would get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, but we'll look up the numbers. I'm pretty sure it comes out to be about only $1 trillion, only $1 trillion. But I'll look it up real quick. It takes a second. Well, maybe not. But it's roughly $1 trillion what it comes out to be for Medicare and Medicaid that you'd wipe out. So you're adding an extra $2.2 trillion. $2.2 trillion is what Bernie Sanders wants to add on to the budget, which we're already at 4.4. So I don't understand where he's going to come up with this kind of money. Not to mention taxes raising doesn't increase it. There's no guarantee by raising taxes you can increase it. Not only are they looking to give Medicare for all to all of us and raise taxes, the Democrats were asked on stage, who here on stage wants to have their Medicare for all plan will be used for illegal immigrants as well. So free healthcare for illegal immigrants, illegal. Keep in mind, illegal immigrants. Free healthcare on taxpayer dime. Here goes that clip.
A lot of you have been talking tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay. Let me start with you, Mayor Buttigieg. Why?
I love how Bernie Sanders' hand shoots up really fast, really high. Do you see how quick these Democrat politicians are antsy to spend your money? You know, I don't see them donating too much money. I don't see them too quick to hand out their money, but they're very quick to spend your money. For instance, you know Joe Biden. We already went over Bernie Sanders, how much he donates, which is practically nothing, and on many years he donates zero. On average, Joe Biden only donates $300 a year. $300 a year. My wife and I donate more to charity in a month than Joe Biden donates on average a year. And keep in mind, Joe Biden makes over $1 million a year. And I can promise you all, I'm not making anywhere near $1 million a year. And I donate more than he does in a month than he donates in a year. See how quick they're willing to spend your money, but not their money? Now, there's 22 million illegal immigrants that's projected to be here. 22 million illegal immigrants that would get free health care under these plans. On average, these Medicare for All plans, on average, will cost about $10,000 per individual. That means we're looking at 220 extra billion, $220 billion onto the Medicare for All. So we're talking close to $3.5 trillion. Bernie Sanders and the Democrats want to spend on taxpayer money for free health care. Not to count the illegal immigrants who are going to jump the border to get this free health care. I mean, why wouldn't they? They'd be actually stupid not to. $3.5 trillion. I'm not too sure how they're going to come up with this money. Not even a little bit. I mean, you add in then also all college tuition is free and everyone's student debts are gone. I mean, that's going to be on average going forward after the $1.6 trillion for student debts. I think it's $1.2 trillion going forward every year to give students free college. So you're adding an extra $1.2 trillion. on minimum, they're going to have to tax everybody 60% or higher. Now, before you hear this BS at, well, it's the rich that needs to, it's going to be the rich that gets taxed because they need to pay their fair share. The millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie likes to say, they actually do pay their fair share. You know who's not paying their fair share? Practically everyone else who is below the top 50% earners in America. That's right. So the 1% in America, the 1%, they pay for our federal tax revenue that is collected. 50% of our federal tax revenue, the $3.4 trillion our government gets from taxes, 50% of that comes from the 1%. The 1% covers 50% of our budget. The 10%, I think it's the top 10%, they cover 90 or 95%, something like that, of our federal budget. And then the top 50% of income earners, they cover essentially 100%. So that means the bottom 50% are not actually paying taxes. And the bottom like 10 or 15%, not only are they not paying taxes, but they're actually collecting taxes. They're actually gaining money from taxes. So if they're going to get this over double our current budget, if they're going to get to that, they can't do it by taxing the rich. They're going to have to do it by taxing everyone else. So if you want to have a 60% is roughly what I'm estimating this at, taxation of your paycheck, and don't forget, if you're on Social Security, that will probably get taxed as well because they gotta come up with the money somehow, people. So if you want to live off 40% of your hard-earned money, and the government gets to take 60%, then by all means, go for this Medicare for all. By all means, go for it. Vote Democrats. If you plan on working until August, from January to August, without collecting a paycheck, because January through August, that amount of money you earned, that's the government's money. Then you actually start earning going forward until through December. Essentially, you're a slave to the government. Essentially. Now, that was pretty much the Democrat debate, and I'm not going to go into more. I just really wanted to point out things that really irked me a little bit, just how ridiculously stupid. But I want to get on the issue that actually is far more important, and again, I'm going to switch slides real quick, and it's going to pop up a bunch of videos. I'm going to close them down, so bear with me.
This that shall take place.
Okay. So anyways, the Supreme Court, they have officially ruled on the census. The census question for 2020, because every 10 years is government mandated on the Constitution that we have to have a census conducted on how many citizens are in each state. Well, Trump is trying to add back in, because it used to be a part of, the citizenship question. Are you a citizen on the census? Well, this has been fought tooth and nail by the Democrats. And what transpired? Well, one judge, federal judge, because it went to federal courts first, one judge brought it, appointed by Obama, might I add, so he's a radical leftist activist judge that doesn't believe in the Constitution, but they believe in leftism. And they ruled that Trump's team was only doing this because they wanted to prevent minorities from voting, which makes no sense. Now, it goes to the Supreme Court because the Trump administration challenged it. At this point now, it's been sitting there for a couple months, and the Supreme Court finally took it because on Thursday was their official last day in the Supreme Court. And they ruled on it on the census. Now, it looked like before they were going to officially rule that the 5 Republican judges were pretty steadfast on the census question of citizenship was constitutional. But, of course, the Supreme Court screws us again. They screw us again, and they end up putting in a 5-4 against the Trump administration's citizenship question. Obviously, the 4 radical left judges that are appointed by Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, they voted against the Trump administration. But we have a 5 Republican nominated and appointed judges in there that should have kept up with it. Now, 4 of them did, but guess what? John Roberts, our favorite traitor and one of the worst Supreme Court nominations a Republican has ever made, voted against the Trump administration. I have no idea why they voted against it. It makes absolutely no sense. There was no reason. The president has all rights to add this question. It used to be on there in the 1950s. Radical leftists took it out, and Trump has wanted that in. The president gets the right to decide these questions. And somehow the Supreme Court decided to be radical and go against us. This is a prime example to why it is highly important we hold our Republican nominated presidents and senators to put in very, very conservative judges. The most extreme conservative judges you can come up with only should be nominated and put into court. We can't have these people that flip. I'm not even a big fan of Kavanaugh. And honestly, I'm at the point, I think we own Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh voted our way, but he's a little bit of a flake at times. If Kavanaugh shouldn't even be allowed to vote without consenting with all Republican voters. We should own his vote because we could have let him go down. We could have let him go down, his life be ruined. But no, we stood up for him. So we own him. He better never flip. I don't like putting these flakes up there. This is why I disagreed with the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to begin with. Now, I defended him like crazy. He has stuck with us on some pretty crucial cases, but he hasn't at times. And this is why Amy Coney Barrett better be our nomination next time. She's young, and she is very staunch conservative. We cannot afford to lose these kind of cases in the Supreme Court. Now, Trump has announced he's going to challenge this terrible ruling in the Supreme Court. And Trump tweeted he's going to delay. He's challenging it, but he's going to try to delay the census. So that way, because it's due in a week. It's due in a week, but this is what Trump said on Twitter. Seems totally ridiculous that our government and indeed country cannot ask a basic question of citizenship in a very expensive, detailed, and important census. In this case, for 2020, I've asked lawyers if they can delay the census no matter how long until the United States Supreme Court is given additional information from which it can make a final decisive decision on this very critical matter. Can anyone really believe that as a great country you're not able to ask whether or not someone is a citizen only in America, he is correct. How can we not ask that? That is pretty dang basic. Pretty basic. It needs to be added, and hopefully it is. Hopefully it is, because we can't afford to have this continue without asking these questions, because Democrats are using it to abuse the system. Now, another really bad Supreme Court ruling that was absolutely terrible was the Johnson versus Texas ruling. Now, for those of you who don't know the Johnson v. Texas ruling, it's pretty much the Supreme Court ruling that allows flag burning as a protection of freedom of speech. There's obviously a written law that says it's illegal, because I've been asked this, isn't there a law against this? And to answer that to many people, I've tried to answer as many as I can on social media, because I've been asked that after I posted an article of what story I'm about to hit. I've been asked a lot, isn't it illegal though already to burn the flag, and why is it not enforced by the law? Well, yes, it was written. It is a written law, currently actually, that the flag cannot be burned. It is illegal. However, the Johnson v. Texas in the Supreme Court case, where the Supreme Court deemed burning a flag is protected by the freedom of speech, the First Amendment. Now, this is why the written law then gets trumped by the First Amendment. So, a written law cannot actually trump an amendment. So, due to the fact that the law was written that it is illegal, but since the Supreme Court deemed, and I think it was a terrible ruling, but deemed the flag as burning the flag as a freedom of speech act, you can't enforce the law. Which is why it was a terrible ruling to begin with. And here's where it's going to get. I'll explain that in a second. So, Johnson is Gregory, Joey as his alias, nickname, Johnson. He was a member of the Revolutionary Communist Party. He's a member of it. And in particular, when he went Johnson v. Texas to the Supreme Court. He is a bleeding communist that hates America. And he loves burning the American flag. So to protect and stand up for the Johnson v. Texas, because a lot of conservatives, I'm one of the few that actually oppose, of conservative pundits, I'm one of the few that actually oppose burning the flag as a protection. I don't believe it is. Because I feel to stand up for the Johnson v. Texas, you're standing up for communism. Based on the fact that he's a bleeding communist that hated America, that was able to somehow beat the system to make that legal. It makes no dang sense. I will not stand up for a communist. And I don't think anyone else should either. The ruling should be overturned. Absolutely in a second. My opinion, a Communist Party member does not have legal rights. They don't. Because I'm a staunch advocate that communism/socialism is not protected by the First Amendment, which means it is not protected by the Constitution as a political party. Because they advocate for a violent overthrow of America. Which is also something we're going to get into tomorrow with the Antifa attacks. At that point, this guy doesn't even have legal rights. Because there should be an instant arrest of this guy just for being a Communist Party member. He should be spending his life in jail as a traitor to this country. But no, we will just let it go because, well, of course communism has to be protected. No, it doesn't, and it's not, and it shouldn't be. It absolutely should not be. So, in my opinion, the Johnson case is garbage, and there was no bearing. Now, this guy, here's where the story gets interesting. Because he's still alive, people. He's still alive. Unfortunately, he is still alive. And as we all know, President Trump has called for he has called for the 4th of July big celebration at the White House, which is awesome. I love it. And this guy, the traitor, Johnson, is mad, and he says it's that he doesn't approve of this new celebration from Trump, and he vows to have a counter protest where he's going to burn a bunch of American flags. Which makes no sense, because let's go ahead and burn the American flag, which gives you the right to have freedom of speech, which somehow is deemed to allow you to burn the flag, which then means you don't like your country that gives you the right to do this, so shouldn't your rights be taken away? Doesn't make any sense. But Johnson said in an interview, when he announced he's going to do this protest, "I'm going to be there in D.C., and that rag of empire and oppression is going to burn American flag." And then Johnson continued of his opposition to Trump's 2019 celebration for 4th of July, which is coming up, into that he is going to that Trump is turning the 4th of July celebration into a fascist extravaganza of Make America White Again, xenophobia, jingoism. They come up with so many new things I can never keep up, and American chauvinism. Johnson continued, "I'll be in town to make it happen and to help expose Trump's fascist agenda with the message that America was never great." America was never great. America was built on slavery, genocide, and war. Instead of trying to go back to some dreamland America that never existed, we need to go forward to a world without America and everything it stands for. And Johnson concluded, and yeah, it's the flag of this shameless fascist jackal Trump. So apparently, this guy, who, again, I think his statements, his own words, kind of make my case that communism is not protected, and you should lose all of your rights if you're a known communist, because he called for the violent overthrow of a government, as he practically stated in his statements. But the left, they have no idea what fascism is, and this is what bothers me. And everyone has so many. A lot of people on the right, they even get very confused. A lot of people on the right, there's some respected people, like Andrew Klavan, who I really, really do like, but he's pretty much wrong on fascism still. So his stance is fascism is both left-wing and right-wing, but it is nothing right-wing. Now, because he says it has some right-wing stuff like nationalism. Nationalism is not right-wing. Nationalism is every country. Every country ever known to man that ever existed is nationalist. There has never once been one country that has not been a nationalist country. Even Soviet Union, extreme nationalist. Cuba, extreme nationalist. Venezuela, extreme nationalist. China, extreme nationalist. North Korea, extreme nationalist, same with Vietnam. I gave you all these communist nations. Nationalism goes for every country. So there is no right-wing tinge to it. It's all left-wing. They believe in socialism. They believe in, I guess socialism is the broad term, so I guess there's no sense I was going to break down everything they believed in it, but socialism includes all of it, so you understand what socialism is. But everything that a socialist believes, so do fascists. Now, there's only one difference between a fascist and a socialist. So today there is no difference, but this mattered while the Soviet Union was still in existence. So when the Soviet Union was around, the all countries that were people, not countries, but people, individuals that were socialist, they bowed down to the Soviets. The Soviet Union was the motherland. So the Soviet Union came before your own country. Fascism came about with Mussolini. Now, Hitler's not necessarily a fascist, but he believed in the same philosophy of, I'm not bowing down to the Soviet Union, it's Germany first, Mussolini, Italy first, because it didn't make sense to bow down to the Soviet Union when you have your own citizens. Fascism isn't hard to explain. It's completely far left. So I would like him to know, what the heck is he talking about that Trump is a fascist? Name one way that it's fascist, that his administration has been fascist. But that's my feeling on the flag burning. I think amendment should be passed to eliminate flag burning altogether. Now, Cory Booker, who is running for president, he announced that he is, during a speech, that he would not oppose sitting down and having a conversation with Louis Farrakhan, and he kind of spoke of him in a good way, too. Now, Louis Farrakhan is an extreme Hitler lover, by the way, which is very odd. Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, who praises Hitler as a great man, calls for the extermination of Jews, terrible human being. But Cory Booker, who condemned Joe Biden for wanting to sit down and discuss with segregationists, was more than happy to say, yeah, I'll sit down with Louis Farrakhan. And here goes that clip.
Yes.
You agree with Mr. Louis Farrakhan?
I am.
My question was, would you be willing to have an audience with him concerning that subject matter?
You know, I live in Newark, so we have famous Mosque 25. We have Nation of Islam there. As mayor, I met with lots of folks talking to them. I've heard Minister Farrakhan's speeches for a lot of my life. So I don't feel like I need to do that, but I'm not one of these people that says I wouldn't sit down with anybody to hear what they have to say. But when I live on a neighborhood where I'm getting guys on the streets offering and selling his works, I'm very familiar with Minister Louis Farrakhan and his beliefs in his. Yes.
It's just so hypocritical that the left never has to be held up to certain standards when you are sitting down with the most radical people. The most radical people. I don't understand how they have yet to apologize for their connections to Louis Farrakhan. It just blows my mind. In the left, they are completely a fascist. The left is fascism, and here's another example. So Google, far left Google, they, who are praised by the left for what they do, trying to silence conservatives, they went out and they labeled Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager, and Jordan Peterson as known Nazis, so we should silence them and remove them from our platform. Now, this statement is as odd and ridiculous as it gets because Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager, these are very extremely religious practicing Jews and Orthodox Jews at that, which is about as the most extreme Judaism belief you can get. The most extreme. Yet they were labeled Nazis. Nazis. Jordan Peterson is a famous psychologist professor in Canada who who spends most of his time discussing how the radical left is evil. And he discusses how a lot of his time on communism and fascism and Nazism. This guy has opposed Nazism to the most extreme and talks negatively about them almost any chance he can get, in particular to his students. And he's labeled a Nazi. Now, Google was brought in front of Congress, and Dan Crenshaw, my congressman, I love Dan Crenshaw, really grilled Google over this email that was obtained, establishing their statements of calling and labeling these people as obviously Nazis. So here's Dan Crenshaw really laying in a House hearing into the Google executives about this.
And this is especially concerning given the recent news and the recent leaked emails from Google. They show that labeling mainstream conservative media as Nazis is a premise upon which you operate. It's not even a question, according to those emails. The emails say, given that Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Dennis Prager are Nazis, given that that's a premise, what do we do about it? 2 of 3 of these people are Jewish, very religious Jews, and yet you think they're Nazis. It begs the question, what kind of education do people at Google have? So they think that religious Jews are Nazis?
Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes, Mr. Crenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for some of the thoughtful discussion on how you combat terrorism online. I think there's worthy debates to be had there. And there's good questions on whether some of this content provides education so that we know of the bad things out there, or whether it's radicalizing people. Those are hard discussions to have, and I don't know that we're going to solve them today. But the problem is that the testimony doesn't stop there. The policies at your social media companies do not stop there. It doesn't stop at the clear-cut lines of terrorism and terrorist videos and terrorist propaganda. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what we're talking about. It goes much further than that. It goes down the slippery slope of what speech is appropriate for your platform and the vague standards that you employ in order to decide what is appropriate. And this is especially concerning given the recent news and the recent leaked emails from Google. They show that labeling mainstream conservative media as Nazis is a premise upon which you operate. It's not even a question, according to those emails. The emails say, given that Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Dennis Prager are Nazis, given that that's a premise, what do we do about it? 2 of 3 of these people are Jewish, very religious Jews, and yet you think they're Nazis. It begs the question, what kind of education do people at Google have? So they think that religious Jews are Nazis? 3 of 3 of these people had family members killed in the Holocaust. Ben Shapiro is the #1 target of the alt-right, and yet you people operate off the premise that he's a Nazi. It's pretty disturbing. And it gets to the question, do you believe in hate speech? How do you define that? Can you give me a quick definition right now? Is it written down somewhere, Google? Can you give me a definition of hate speech?
Congressman, yes. So hate speech, again, as updated in our guidelines now, extends to superiority over protected groups to justify discrimination, violence, and so on, based on a number of defining characteristics, whether that's race, sexual orientation, veteran status.
Do you have an example of Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or Dennis Prager engaging in hate speech? Do you have one example off the top of your head?
So, Congressman, we evaluate individual piece of content based on that content rather than based on the speaker.
Okay. Let's get to the next question. Do you believe speech can be violence? All right. There's not can you incite violence? That is very clearly not protected. But can speech just be violence? Do you believe that speech that isn't specifically calling for violence can be labeled violence and therefore harmful to people? Is that possible?
Congressman, I'm not sure I fully understand the distinction you're drawing. Certainly, again, incitement to violence or things that are encouraging dangerous behavior, those are things that would be against our policies.
Here's the thing. When you call somebody a Nazi, you can make the argument that you're inciting violence, and here's how. As a country, we all agree that Nazis are bad. We actually invaded an entire continent to defeat the Nazis. It's normal to say hashtag punch a Nazi because there's this common thread among in this country that they're bad and that they're evil and that they should be destroyed. So when you're operating off of that premise, and frankly, it's a good premise to operate on, well, what you're implying then is that it's okay to use violence against them. When you label them, when one of the most powerful social media companies in the world labels people as Nazis, you can make the argument that's inciting violence. What you're doing is wholly irresponsible. It doesn't stop there. A year ago, it was also made clear that your fact-check system is blatantly targeted at conservative newspapers. Do you have any comment on that? Are you aware of the story I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with necessarily the specific story, Congressman. I am aware that from all political viewpoints, we sometimes get questions of this sort. I can say that our fact-check labels generally are done algorithmically based on markup and follow our policies.
For the record, they specifically target conservative news media, and oftentimes they have a fact check on there that doesn't even reference the actual article, but Google makes sure that it's right next to it so as to make people understand that that one is questionable, even though when you actually read through it, it has nothing to do with it. A few days ago, and this goes to you, Ms. Burkett, one of my constituents posted photos on Facebook of Republican women daring to say that there are women for Trump. Facebook took down that post right away with no explanation. Is there any explanation for that?
Without seeing it, it's hard for me to opine. That doesn't violate our policies, but I'm happy to follow up on the specific example with you.
Thank you. Listen, here's what it comes down to. If we don't share the values of free speech, I'm not sure where we go from here. This practice of silencing millions and millions of people, it will create wounds and divisions in this country that we cannot heal from. This is extremely worrisome. You've created amazing platforms. We can do amazing things with what these companies have created. But if we continue down this path, it'll tear us apart. You do not have a constitutional obligation to enforce the First Amendment, but I would say that you absolutely have an obligation to enforce American values, and the First Amendment is an underpinning of American values that we should be protecting until the day we die. Thank you, and thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman.
Dan Crenshaw is incredibly correct. Incredibly correct. There is nowhere else we can go if these companies keep trying to censor us and we can't all agree on freedom of speech. If we can't agree on these basic concepts, then where do we go from here? Now this story comes out and after Google whistleblower and releases information that Google has been doing this kind of stuff. But he's 100% right. Where do we go from here? Can we, as a society, move on forward? Can we really heal these wounds going forward? And honestly, I think if we haven't crossed that line yet, we are flirting with that line that to a level we maybe haven't seen since the Civil War. It's a subject we're going to really hit hard tomorrow is, have we crossed this line? Have we crossed this line? We'll discuss that tomorrow with the Antifa attacks. And where do we go from here? I will catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. And tomorrow, just so you know, is the official Independence Day. It's not actually 4th of July. It's actually July 2nd. So I'll see you all tomorrow and break down, can we really heal the divide in this country?